let's talk about how distraction and avoidance are really like Band-Aids, right? So every time we distract ourselves by scrolling on social media or, reading a book, watching TV, doing anything that we normally do, so think about the things you do that are distractions. So every time you do that, or every time you avoid doing something that makes you uncomfortable, and this could be physically uncomfortable, maybe it's physical pain, especially if you're a spoonie, or maybe it is a difficult feeling, like an emotion. We don't like to do things that make us anxious, for example. So every time you distract from those feelings, again, physical or emotional, still sensations in your body either way, or every time you avoid them, and often we avoid through distraction, so these things really go together, right? It is like putting a Band-Aid, I have a Band-Aid on my thumb. It's like putting a Band-Aid on that, on what you're feeling. And the problem with a Band-Aid is, for like a little cut, yeah, sure, it'll help it heal, but for some of this other stuff, it doesn't really do much. So you're constantly putting on Band-Aids. Band-Aid falls off, you have to put on a new one. Band-Aid falls off, you put on a new one. Band-Aid falls off, you put on a new one. That was just quite tiring, really. And it really does nothing long-term. It's a very, very short-term solution, just like a Band-Aid is. If you put a Band-Aid on something that needs stitches, it doesn't work very well, right? And so there are other ways that we can engage with our difficult sensations, difficult feelings, right? Or even our difficult thoughts. And I post a lot of those ways on my TikTok channel. So if you don't follow me TikTok, you should check that out because I use a lot of coping strategies on that. But also I've talked about it on the blog before, on the vlog before, when I had the podcast, we talked about on the podcast, right? Different ways that we can learn to just make some room for our difficult thoughts and feelings, create some distance between some of those difficult thoughts, really engage with ourselves differently. I'm a big fan of, meditative practice, mindfulness practices, yoga, that kind of thing. But those are certainly not the only ways. There's lots and lots of other strategies that you can use as well. And just kind of getting, I think, curious about your experience instead of resisting it is really the first step, which is really, really hard to do. And so having some kind of support network can be quite useful, whether that be a friend, a family member, a partner, a coach, a therapist. Would recommend, especially if you want to make any big changes and really, really see and learn some strategies and see some ways that, you can maybe cope with some of the underlying issues. Because at the end of the day, even if it's physical pain, there's usually some kind of underlying issue that has nothing to do with the physical pain itself. I'm just talking from my experience, both personal and professional. You can totally disagree with that if you like. I have a feeling a lot of you will agree though. So again, just remembering that there's nothing wrong with using a Band-Aid. It's just temporary. You're not looking for it to be a long-term solution. And if you want a long-term solution, you're going to hopefully find another way to get one. Everybody take care and keep making the most of it.